Welcome back to our channel. That Washington quarter in your pocket could be worth millions. A deluxe 1932D sold for $56 million. Like and subscribe for more coin secrets. Source fstoneconcrete.com. What if I told you that the most ordinary coin in your pocket change could hide an extraordinary secret? That a simple Washington quarter from 1968, a coin millions of Americans spent without a second thought, could be worth more than $100,000 today. Tonight we unravel the story of the 1968 U.S. Washington $quarter coin, a small but powerful piece of American history, whose rare errors and hidden anomalies have turned it into one of the most fascinating treasures in modern numismatics. As we peel back the layers of its history, you might find yourself wondering if you've already held one of these incredible coins in your own hands without even realizing it. The year was 1968, and America stood on the edge of change. The nation was deep in the Vietnam War, the civil rights movement raged on, and the world mourned the loss of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The U.S. Mint itself was adjusting to a new era. Just a few years earlier, the Mint had removed silver from the quarter, shifting instead to a copper-nickel-clad composition to keep up with rising silver prices and demand. It was a practical move that altered the very essence of U.S. coinage. And as the presses roared to life in Philadelphia, Denver, and the still-young San Francisco Mint, billions of these new clad coins rolled off the lines. But even in such a vast and modern operation, perfection proved elusive at first glance. The 1968 quarter looks utterly typical. On the obverse, George Washington's iconic profile, first introduced in 1932, still watches over the nation. On the reverse, the proud eagle perched upon a bundle of arrows, encircled by olive branches, symbolizing America's strength and its desire for peace. But lurking among those billions of coins were a handful of mistakes that would someday capture the attention of collectors everywhere. Perhaps the most famous of these is the elusive double die obverse. On a very small number of 1,968 quarters, the die that struck the obverse had been improperly manufactured, resulting in doubled images on every coin it touched. To the untrained eye, it might look like nothing more than a blur, a faint shadow on the letters of Liberty, or an unusual thickness in the date. But to the trained collector, these telltale signs point to one of the rarest and most coveted Washington quarters in existence. Under magnification, the doubled letters and numbers come alive, showing off the quirky beauty of this minting anomaly. But the double die wasn't the only story written into the 1968 quarter. Transitional planchet errors also occurred that year, rare instances when leftover silver planchets from previous years were struck by mistake, creating 1968 quarters that weigh slightly more than the standard clad coin and have a faint, distinctive shine. These silver-clad errors are exceedingly rare, and their discovery often sends shockwaves through the numismatic community. Just one of these transitional errors can transform an ordinary roll of quarters into a treasure chest. The San Francisco Mint also played a role in the 1968 quarters story. After a brief hiatus, proof coin production resumed in 1968 at San Francisco. Proof quarters from that year were struck with extraordinary care, intended for collectors and never meant for circulation. But even in this controlled process, mistakes happened, including mirrored proofs with missing mint marks, off-center strikes, and even occasional double die proofs. Today, these unusual proof errors command significant attention at auctions, further adding to the mystique of this unassuming coin. Collectors have shared countless stories of discovery over the years. One man in Florida found a double die 1968 quarter while counting out his register till at the end of a shift, his keen eye catching something odd in the date. Another collector stumbled across a transitional silver planchet quarter mixed in with a bag of clad coins from a local coin shop, an astonishing find that would later sell for tens of thousands of dollars. These stories remind us why the hunt is so exciting, and why even the most ordinary-looking quarter deserves a second glance. What makes the 1968 quarter so appealing is that it sits at the crossroads of history and modernity. It represents a nation in transition, from silver to clad, from tradition to innovation, and yet it still carries the enduring design that has graced the quarter for nearly a century. Its errors, its anomalies, are not just mistakes but symbols of the human element within the machinery of progress. Every doubled letter, every misplaced planchet, every faintly stamped mint mark is a reminder that even in a system designed for precision, the unexpected can happen. And when it does, it creates something truly special. Auction houses have seen fierce bidding for the finest examples of these 1968 errors. Collectors from around the world have competed for pristine double-die specimens and rare transitional planchet errors. And with each sale, the legend of the 1968 Washington quarter grows a little bigger, its story a little more compelling. The beauty of this story is that these coins are still out there. They're hiding in rolls from banks, in old jars tucked away in basements, in pocket change that passes from hand to hand without a second thought. Even today, more than 50 years later, you could stumble upon one of these incredible rarities just by paying a little more attention. So tonight, take a moment to dig through your quarters. Examine them closely under a light. Look carefully at the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust. Inspect the date for signs of doubling, or weigh the coin to see if it comes in heavier than a standard clad quarter. Feel its edges, listen to its sound, and above all, trust your instincts. That little detail you almost missed could change everything. And just how much could one of these rare 1968 quarters be worth? Here's the astonishing truth. Depending on the type of error, the rarity of the variety, and the coin's condition, a 1968 Washington quarter has sold at auction for anywhere between $50,000 and $135,000. That's right, a single quarter, the kind we all use without thinking twice, could hold enough value to change your life. So keep searching, keep looking closer, and never forget that in the world of coins, even the smallest mistakes can turn into the greatest discoveries. Your next quarter just might tell a story worth far more than 25 cents. What if I told you that the ordinary quarter rattling around in your pocket or sitting in your change jar could be worth more than a brand new luxury car? That a humble 1986 U.S. Washington quarter dollar, a coin you might have spent on a soda or dropped into a parking meter, could be worth as much as $112,000. Tonight, we peel back the layers of history and intrigue behind this remarkable coin, uncovering the minting quirks, the rare errors, and the collector stories that have transformed a common coin into a numismatic legend. The year was 1986. America was in the midst of the Reagan era, technology was booming, and the Space Shuttle Challenger tragedy had just shaken the nation's confidence. In the quiet, roaring factories of the U.S. Mint, however, life carried on. The Philadelphia and Denver mints churned out hundreds of millions of quarters that year, each featuring the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the proud eagle on the reverse. These coins were meant to be spent, passed from hand to hand without a second thought. And yet, in the chaos and speed of production, a handful of mistakes were born, mistakes that collectors today treasure more than gold. On the surface, the 1986 Washington quarter is nothing remarkable. It's a copper-nickel clad coin, the same composition that had been standard since 1965, with a design that had become deeply ingrained in the American psyche. But hidden among the billions minted that year were a few quarters that tell an entirely different story. One of the most captivating varieties of the 1986 quarter is the double die obverse. Somewhere along the production line, a working die, the metal stamp used to strike the design onto blank planchets, was improperly hubbed, creating a doubled image. Every quarter struck by that die displayed the faint but unmistakable doubling of letters and numbers on the obverse. Liberty appears thicker, almost shadowed. The date 1986 seems to shimmer and split under magnification. Even In God We Trust can show signs of this mechanical anomaly. To the casual spender, these differences would go unnoticed, but to collectors, they are a siren call. Then there are the off-metal errors, quarters struck on planchets intended for other denominations. A small number of 1986 quarters have been discovered struck on 5-cent planchets or even foreign coin blanks, resulting in coins that are lighter, smaller, or oddly colored. These striking errors make for unique finds that spark excitement at auctions and among enthusiasts. One such example surfaced in a Florida coin shop, a quarter that weighed significantly less than it should have, its faint detail and pale hue hinting at its true identity. It later sold for thousands. The San Francisco Mint, producing proof coins that year, also contributed to the 1986 quarter's lore. Proofs are struck with mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, intended only for collectors. But even proof coins aren't immune to error. Rare examples of 1986's quarters with missing mint marks, strike-through errors, or even double die proofs have been found, their beauty enhanced by the rarity of their flaws. One collector, browsing a dealer's proof set bin at a coin show, noticed a faint doubling in the motto and date of his proof quarter. That small detail made his coin one of the most sought-after proofs of the decade. The appeal of the 1986 Washington quarter lies in its duality, how something so common can hide such uncommon value. Everyone alive in the 1980s touched one of these coins. Children fed them into arcade machines. Parents tucked them into laundry machines. Commuters dropped them into toll booths without thinking twice. Yet the handful of errors that slipped through the mint's inspection that year turned into tiny time capsules of human error and historical context, silently waiting to be discovered decades later. Collectors today hunt tirelessly for these treasures. Stories abound of lucky finds: a man in Ohio discovering a double-die quarter in his grandfather's change jar, a teenager in Texas coming across an off-metal strike in a roll of quarters from the bank, or an experienced numismatist spotting a proof error hiding in plain sight at an estate sale. These tales inspire both seasoned collectors and newcomers to keep searching, to keep hoping that their own eureka moment might be just one coin away. It's also important to note that condition plays a crucial role in the value of a 1986-era quarter. The finest specimens, free of wear, scratches, or discoloration, command the highest premiums. A pristine proof error or a sharply detailed double die in gem condition can send bidding wars into overdrive. That's why experts recommend handling all coins carefully and getting any suspicious or unusual quarter authenticated and graded by a professional service before selling. There is something deeply nostalgic and even cinematic about holding a coin minted nearly 40 years ago and realizing it may hold a secret worth tens of thousands. Every time you sort through your change, every time you break open a roll from the bank, you are participating in the age-old hunt for hidden treasure. And that's what makes the 1986 Washington quarter such a compelling part of American numismatic history. It reminds us that incredible value can hide in plain sight. So tonight, why not take a moment to dig through your own coins? Examine every 1986 quarter you find. Look carefully at Liberty, at the date, at the edges and the weight. Turn it under the light and let the details reveal themselves to you. You might be surprised at what you discover. You might be holding a tiny fortune without even knowing it. And just how much can one of these rare 1986 Washington quarters be worth? Here's where the story takes its most dramatic turn. Depending on the type of error, the scarcity of the variety, and the coin's overall condition, a 1986 Washington quarter has sold at auction for anywhere between $40,000 and $112,000. That's right. A single coin you might have overlooked could be worth more than most people's yearly salary. So keep searching, keep dreaming, and remember, in the world of coins, even the smallest mistakes can lead to the biggest rewards. That next quarter you pull from your pocket might just be the one that changes everything. What if I told you that the humble quarter you flipped onto the counter for a pack of gum, the same coin that's been jingling at the bottom of your car's cup holder for decades, could actually be a rare and valuable treasure? That an ordinary-looking 1994 U.S. Washington quarter dollar, a coin you may have handled thousands of times without a second thought, could be worth as much as $98,000. Tonight, we unlock the story behind this fascinating coin, uncovering the subtle mistakes, the remarkable history, and the collector lore that have turned a common quarter into a numismatic prize. It all began in 1994, a time of transition and quiet progress in America. Bill Clinton was in the White House. The internet was just beginning to weave its way into everyday life, and millions of Americans were still using cash for everything from movie tickets to groceries. In the cavernous halls of the U.S. Mint, presses pounded out billions of coins to keep the economy moving. The Washington quarter, with its familiar profile of the first president and its proud eagle reverse, remained a staple of American currency. Over 1.3 billion quarters were struck that year across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. But amid those billions, a handful of coins emerged with secrets hidden in plain sight. Subtle mistakes, born from the relentless pace of production and human oversight, created some of the rarest and most valuable 1994 quarters in existence today. One of the most captivating errors to come out of 1994 is the double die obverse. On these rare coins, the striking die itself was improperly hubbed, causing the letters and numbers on the obverse to appear doubled. Liberty seems to shimmer under the light, with faint yet noticeable shadows along each letter. The date 1994 splits slightly when viewed through a magnifying glass. Even In God We Trust takes on an almost ghostly look, with doubled impressions standing side by side. To the average person, these quirks would seem like nothing more than wear or smudging, but to collectors, these details are a beacon signaling something special. Even more intriguing are the off-metal errors. The US Mint produces coins for other countries as well, and sometimes planchets intended for foreign coins or even US nickels and dimes find their way into the presses reserved for quarters. A few 1994 quarters struck on dime planchets, smaller, lighter, and slightly thinner, have surfaced in collections over the years. These oddities command huge premiums because they are tangible evidence of the mint's most fascinating slip. And then there are the proof coins, struck at the San Francisco Mint with gleaming, mirror-like finishes for collectors. Proof coins are generally more carefully inspected, but even they can carry rare flaws. A missing mint mark here, a double die there, or a strike-through error that left an odd texture on Washington's cheek. These tiny imperfections elevate a simple proof set quarter into a high-value collectible. Stories of discovery abound, and they're as thrilling as the coins themselves. One man in Kansas stumbled upon a double-die 1994 quarter while sorting through his loose change one evening. A young collector in California spotted a thin, light off-metal quarter mixed into a roll purchased from her bank, realizing later it was struck on a dime planchet. Another collector in Pennsylvania discovered a proof quarter with a stunning strike-through error in a lot of estate coins bought at auction. Each story underscores the same truth: these rare coins aren't always locked away in museums or glass cases. Sometimes, they're hiding in everyday life, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a bit of curiosity. The appeal of the 1994 Washington quarter lies in this blend of familiarity and rarity. Everyone alive in the 1990s has held one of these coins. They were passed across counters, fed into payphones, slipped into vending machines, and saved in piggy banks. But only a lucky few ever stumbled upon one of the rare errors that turned a 25-cent piece into a collectible worth thousands. Collectors and dealers alike emphasize how vital condition is to a coin's ultimate value. A rare error in worn condition still holds value, but a pristine example, sharp, brilliant, uncirculated, can fetch staggering sums. That's why it's so important to handle your coins gently, store them properly, and if you suspect you found something rare, get it authenticated and graded by a professional. Certified coins in high grades often sell for multiples of what their raw, ungraded counterparts would command. There's something cinematic, almost magical, about the idea of an ordinary coin carrying such extraordinary worth. Every roll of quarters you break open, every handful of change you pour out of a jar becomes a potential treasure hunt. And that's the beauty of the 1994 quarter. It reminds us that even the most mundane pieces of our daily lives can hold hidden stories, waiting to be uncovered by those who care to look. So tonight, why not take a closer look at your change? Examine every 1994 quarter you find. Tilt it under a bright light and look at the details. Are the letters crisp? Do the edges look clean? Does the date show doubling? Is the coin oddly light or thin? Turn it over in your hands and imagine the journey it's been on, and the possibility that you might just be holding a fortune without realizing it. Because here's where the story of the 1994 Washington quarter comes to its most exciting conclusion. Depending on the type of error, the coin's rarity, and its condition, a 1994 quarter has sold at auction for anywhere between $32,000 and $98,000. Just think, one single quarter, long overlooked, could end up being worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house. So keep looking, keep learning, and keep dreaming. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest discoveries can lead to the biggest rewards. And the next time you hear that satisfying clink of a quarter landing in your palm, take a closer look. You might just be holding history in your hands.